I hope, I'm not sure, but I think timetable you must have got, particularly lecture halls or something. So maybe tomorrow we meet in our lecture class, that offline, you can say, class. Let us see. Okay. What we were discussing on the last turn, you want to ask anything about that? Any question from any student? Yes, please. Since you are doing some experiments also, I saw in the lab also, and most of them are, you can say, relevant there. At least whatever you are learning in your lab exercises also, some of them are useful. So maybe you can at least know about, or perhaps, at least get hold of those, information at least. Any other doubt? Any other doubt any student has about? Any other doubt any other student has? This is a little bit irritating, I think, this particular note sound. Okay. So let us start with the lecture that we were, searching for. We talked about in the last turn, I talked about, last topic I covered was uh, repeaters, and a little bit of architecture of repeaters. Like I also discussed about why repeaters are so important, and uh, what is their architecture, how, at least such a high speed signal can be regenerated so effortlessly. I mean, looking to, you can say, our, when you look from the sidelines, it appears that it's a very, very, it must be very simple. But I think if you look into the technical or technology, this particular technologies are very, very, you can say, uh, sophisticated technologies, you can call them, because it's not easy to at least, uh, you can say, synchronize all of them, and that also particularly at such a high speed. Okay. So we had done this thing. I think all of you got it. I mean, transversal filters also. Like, how do you realize, or how do you generate a kind of? I mean, if a signal becomes, you can say, weak, or it's something you can call it. Suppose is someone, let's say, running a marathon, and then after some interval, let's say 5-10 kilometer, he gets some, some glucose or something, whatever, of course, allowed as per the rules, and he gets a little bit energized. Now, in this case of, you can say, digital communication, it's the same thing. After, you can say, depending upon the link, it may be communication, you can say, electrical cable, it can be optical fiber, or it may be some other, you can say, uh, channel. And so, depending upon each one of them, at a certain distance, if you want to keep on transmitting your signal, digital signals, then those signals obviously suffer attenuation as well as some other, you can say, synchronization issues. And to get over, this kind of, you can say, synchronization or this regeneration, this particular is a integral part of any digital communication system. Like, if this is the transmission medium, amplifier everybody understands, is used for amplifying the signal. And equalizer essentially means, which, you can say, equalizes. What does it equalize? It equalizes the delays. Where from the delays come? The delays come from, you can say, because of, you can say, limited bandwidth available with the channel. And we, since we want to obviously increase the, you can say, our speed or information delivery, so there will be some delays, you can say, the signal gets spreaded up, and it starts interfering with the next bit, you can say. So to, uh, I mean, remove that, or perhaps to ensure accuracy, we use equalizers. Equalizers may be of different kind, that also probably will some one or two we will try to study. And then once it passes through the equalizer, what we do next time, next but perhaps the step is timing extraction. And as far as timing extraction, I think you know about it, like in synchronous demodulation or asynchronous demodulation. You have studied in your analog communication course. So synchronous demodulation means you need to have the same clock signal with you, the signal that was used for, you can say, modulating the signal, or you can say the same carrier. How do you do that? You recover the carrier from the given, you can say, modulated signal, and then you multiply this given you can say carrier signal with the modulated signal, and this is how you demodulate in any most of the synchronous, you can say, signals. Asynchronous you don't require, you can say. So this timing extraction, we need to have at least it's something like, you can say, synchronous. So what I have to extract this timing information from the given signal, transmitted signal. You might say that how do you recover this, this timing means what is the clock cycle. And clock also, as I said, since the speeds are going on gigabits, or you can say, so timing extraction itself is a big, headache, because nanosecond pulse, which you can hardly even see it on, if you try to, look at it in your CRO or something. Normally only R&D labs have, you can say, this kind of, CROs who can really work on, since they are a little bit of expensive, you can say. So this timing, but you should understand the principle, basic principle of timing extraction is, as the experiment you are doing in the lab also, what is called wave synthesis. Okay, you are reconstructing a square wave based upon certain harmonics. What is that? That essentially means a wave is made up of number of, you can say, harmonics. Okay, and those harmonics, if you combine, you get what is, you can say, your corresponding, uh, I mean, waveform that you are looking for. And so here, the timing extraction, we work on the same principle. We try to search out for a fundamental, you can say, frequency of the incoming signal. And we have a tank circuit here in this, you can say, timing extraction unit, which starts, you can say, oscillating at the same, you can say, fundamental frequency component. And the other, you can say, harmonics are obviously suppressed, and you can say this particular gives this particular, amplification of a particular, frequency component gives me certain, you can say, advantage in a sense, because we know it that that's this frequency component which has been coming with my carrier signal. So once I get this clock information, what I do is I sample. Everybody understands samples means discretizing. Yes or no? What is sampling? Who will tell? What is sampling theorem? Students, you are listening? What is sampling theorem? You are doing in the lab also this. Any student?
Sir, sampling is recording the
Reply. What is sampling theorem?
recording the value of amplitude
Student?
of a particular signal at different time instants, regular time instants.
Hello?
Hello?
What is sampling theorem?
Sir, am I audible?
Nyquist criteria. What is sampling theorem? Yes. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. What is sampling theorem?
Sir, sampling is taking values of amplitude of a signal at different at constant time differences.
Yeah, we collect some certain samples. Some other student, you know about Nyquist criteria. I think when we talked about pulse shaping also, we are probably in PCM also. You must have studied. You sample the signal. Hmm? Yes. Any other student? those who are attending the class? No? No reply?
So Fs is greater than or equal to 2 FM, where Fs is sampling frequency and FM is the message of frequency of the message signal.
Yeah, of course. I mean, not FM. It should be twice of FM. And FM, again, I think FM, when you define FM, is the maximum frequency of this message signal. Okay. So, I mean, two corrections here. At least your sampling, you can say frequency should be greater than twice, greater than equal to rather. I mean, but normally it's a greater than always. Uh, Greater than equal to twice FM, where FM is the, you can say, maximum frequency of the message signal. What is meaning of maximum frequency here? Because suppose we are, let's say I am speaking. If I am speaking, I mean, my particular, you can say, this particular message has a lot of frequencies from, you can say, maybe 2 kilohertz to 2.4 to 3 or 4, or you can say many frequencies are there. So what we define this FM is the maximum frequency. That means my voice frequency can, we normally take it as a 4 kilohertz, you can say. So that is where, I mean, this FM. So sampling essentially is a Nyquist criteria, and I think it was Nyquist who defined that how much information you can transmit in a channel. You know, these were early developments, you can say, that when you started having digital, you know, this particular communication, a lot of people said, I mean, how much traffic can, you know, a particular channel can take on? How many people can you be put on a particular, let's say, communication link? So a lot of discussions on that, and this is where the Nyquist, you know, he defined that, you know, there is a upper limit for any channel to, you know, and upper limit with considering that the signal should reaching, you can say, safely and securely. And so this is Nyquist criteria of sampling, where it says that any, you can say, continuous varying signal can be sampled with a, you can say, sampling function at a rate greater than equal to SFM. So I again sample it, because without sampling, how do you, you know, you will not have, you can see, your original signal back. We have to reconstruct. So I sample it and make a decision. What is this decision all about? Decision all about is whether it is 1 or 0. Because I can't show in the board, but the signal is getting attenuated. Suppose, I mean, your maximum voltage 5 volt, and the sampling, you can say, amplitude is coming about, let's say, 0.8 or maybe 0.7 or 1.1 or whatever it is. So again, it has to be decided that 1 has come or 0 has come. So I have to make a decision here. And once I make the decision, I feed it to regenerator. And you can see here, this particular signal is same signal as my original signal. I think that now it should be very clear, probably all of you. This is what we had. Yeah, this is where you can say what we can call as force equalizers or zero force equalizer. You know, you might say that, well, I mean, how do we explain? Let's say I just explained you why do we need equalizer. Look here, what has happened is, suppose this is my incoming, you know, signal. Now, ideally speaking, my sampling instant should have been where this, you can say, pulse is crossing my 0 axis or this x-axis. Okay. Now look here, this is not happening because I am sampling it at this A1 instant. And if I am sampling at this TB A1, my amplitude becomes A1. It is not 0. That means there is some interference, obviously. Because if it's crossing at 0, if you remember again, we discussed in the last turn that the sampling should be always, I mean, we talked about Nyquist pulses, that they have only, at origin, they will have a finite amplitude. At all other places, they should have 0. So if you sample a pulse at, you know, when it is crossing this x-axis, I can reconstruct my signal better. But now you can see here, my, because of, you can see, this timing error or something, if I'm sampling at this instant where amplitude is A1, it is A2, let's say, minus TB, minus 2, A minus 2 or A minus 3. And this is just one pulse, because you are not transmitting one pulse, you are transmitting n number of pulses. So all these pulses, if you add up, that means A1 multiplied by n. So interference will be obviously very high. Understand? I hope you understand that the sampling, why I have to do this equalization. In equalization, what will we do? We will try to force this particular sampling instant to take place at a place where this particular pulse is crossing the 0, so that there is no interference. Now look here, this is the same pulse. Okay, so now if I sample after this, you can say doing zero force equalization. Now you might say that what does it mean, zero force equalization? Zero force equalization means essentially, let's say here, if suppose, I mean, this is my incoming pulse. Okay, so what I do is, I mean, different weight I define, and the delays I define. Okay, and this is my resultant output pulse. So depending upon my, you can see these particular delays, I reconstruct again this P0T in a manner like this one, where this particular pulse is crossing 0 at the sampling instant. Okay, mathematically I could not draw this equations, but you can define mathematically also, because if you are sampling a particular, you can say, function or particular incoming signal at a particular instant, and if the it's you can understand. Is it clear? Yes. You
Yes,
can
sir.
represent this P0T as n pulses from minus n to plus n, Cn, that is a coefficient, Pr T minus NTB. I think that you are reading in all these notations. So if I if I calculate the sample of P0T at KTB, okay, K may be any instant, then obviously I define, you can say, Cn, Pr, K minus n TB. Okay, rather than T, I put on K, you can say there. So that is and then what you can do is you can reconstruct this, I can define this P0K as some sort of Cn. Cn is coefficient that we are multiplying, Pr, K minus n. And I prepare based upon, you can say, this P0K value. We define P0K 1 at K is equal to 0, and all other K, it should be, you can say, 0 as per the Nyquist criteria. So then I can say that only a unique solution exists, for this kind of, you can say, situation. So I can prepare a matrix where in each matrix I define, you can say, my all this Pr minus 1, all these values, and on my right hand side I say that suppose my pulse is finite at kth instant, so I define 1 as, so it's some sort of metric solution. Okay, it will have some 2n plus 1 simultaneous equations in 2n plus 1 variables. And so I can, this is a little bit of optimization problem, and so I can define, solutions there, and I can calculate my coefficient there, a0, a1, a minus 1. And if you remember, you can see in this particular diagram, I mean, all these coefficients, if I know, I mean, I can make sure that is at least my delays are compensated. You can call it compensation also, because delays are, now you can see this, rather than this getting sampled here, I'll be sampling, or this will be forced to pass through 0 here. This particular pulse, you can say, design all this coefficient in a manner that this particular pulse will be crossing 0 here, rather than, you can say, at having a finite amplitude of A1. So this is one technique, you can say, what is called force equalizer, zero force equalizer. That means you are forcing your pulse to have 0 amplitude at the sampling instant. This is one approach. Okay, this is not a only approach, you can say, corresponding to, I mean, this all force equalizers. Okay, student, understand? Read it, I mean, from the book, and we will discuss it also, maybe on the next turn, or when we join the classes also in offline. Now, this is a particular diagram for timing extraction, as I was telling you. Now you can see inside also. You have the equalizer first, then the rectifier and clipper. You might say that why you are rectifying it? Rectifying because if you recall again our line code particular power spectral density calculations, I told you at that particular instant that this on off signaling, they have the impulses. So we try to get impulses somehow. We want to have a particular waveform which gives me some impulsive information, because impulse is easy to detect also. So I do rectification, and after rectification I do the timing extraction, because all those particular pulses I can, when I have my tank circuit, you can say, attached with those impulses, the circuit will start oscillating a particular frequency, that the frequency I can synchronize with. And then comes the amplifier, and then comes the phase shifter. What is meaning of phase shifter? I think many of you might be knowing also, or may not be appreciating right now, but phase shifter essentially means, if the signal is coming through, let's say, electrical line, it will have some resistance component, capacitance component. So there will be, some time delays, and the time delays along with, you will have some phase delays also. So this phase information has to be also compensated. So this phase shifter takes care of this particular delays. Okay. And then comes the limiter. Limiter means essentially we limit the amplitude up to, you can say, 5 volt or 10 volt or whatever the logic family that you are using to, you can say, make use of. And then the pulse generator, and this again may be transmitted in one form or other, whatever form your transmission is taking place. So that is a time extraction. I think everyone is trying to understand now. Okay. Let me see. Yes, of course, this particular, pulse is there. But before that, if I'm transmitting this particular, look at, you might say that, sir, I mean, if you're transmitting, let's say, one particular pulse, when this pulse can go wrong, and why this pulse should go wrong, let us say at the receiver end. Understand? My question is, if you're transmitting, let's say, 5 volt or 8 volt, whatever voltage pulse, why there should be error at the receiver end? The receiver end error can only happen because of the noise or some other, you can say, interference. Agreed? But
Yes, sir.
there has to be some disturbance, you can say. Obviously, if my pulse is positive, and if you have a noise, let's say, so that's what is explained here. If I have, it's a bold, dark line, this is corresponding to my signal, okay? And this dotted line is corresponding to my noise. Noise is random, it can take, any position anywhere. So this is for example. Now, I'm using, let's say, polar signaling. Polar means 1 for positive, and you can say -1 for 0. So suppose that you can say dotted line, noise is something like, okay. So what does it mean? That means you can say minus AP plus noise, this is less than 0. Okay, minus AP is my peak voltage here. So minus AP plus my noise signal, they cumulatively they should generate some signal which is less than 0 for my receiver. So that will happen because noise is also, you can say, negative here, and this particular, this is also positive. Okay, so what will happen if both of them add up? Only negative voltage I'll get. Negative voltage get means that will be correct decision because only 0 has come. Now look here, the same. If it's a positive, then this dark line is, you can say, corresponding positive. My noise is again varying almost as a positive. So there is no problem. Again here also, AP plus N. AP is my peak voltage for my signal, N is my noise. So AP plus N should be greater than 0. That means again it will be decided as 1 only because 1 has come. Now look here. If suppose I have my, you can say, my signal as minus AP, okay. If I have a transmitted 0, but my noise is such that the noise is big enough, that means minus AP plus my noise, this is greater than 0. दोनों का जो cumulative sum है, that becomes greater than 0. What will happen? I mean, you can say, if you look at correctly, then it should have been negative because let's say 0 has only been transmitted. But what is happening now, because of the noise, you can say noise is so big that the cumulative sum of both of them is positive here. So if it is positive, the receiver will consider it as 1 only. Understand? Rather than 0. You understand? Because receiver is not a, you can say, it is based upon some, you can say, logic or some algorithm. Algorithm say it's a positive voltage generated, so obviously it is 1. So that means minus AP plus N, if it is greater than 0, this is going to be an error, detection error. I think you can easily understand it. Okay, so that means there is an error because 0 was transmitted, but the receiver is reading as 1 because of the noise. So that means it's a detection error. Similarly here also, I mean, it's a positive, noise is positive. So again, their sum is greater than 0. So I can say that's a correct decision. You understand? Now, again, in fact, you can say further discuss this. You can say, sir, how do we calculate? Let's say if I want to calculate, because noise is random, as in the beginning I discussed. So random means it can take any, you can say, amplitude at any instant. And that's the definition of a random signal. Okay. So suppose I have a, let's say, noise signal, and the noise signal, as we talked earlier on also, normally the channels are taken as additive, white, Gaussian noise channel. Yes or no? Each student recall? Each student, I mean, in the very first or second lecture, we talked about the channels, and I explained that most of the channels are taken to be AWGN. You must have studied earlier on also this kind of, it is channel modeling, additive, white, Gaussian noise channel. So Gaussian means what? What is Gaussian? Gaussian is a distribution function. What is Gaussian? I can't ask right now, I mean, particularly student, but I mean, any student who would like to, explain it. What is Gaussian? Let me give you a hint also. Most of the, distributions in nature are Gaussian. Okay. If you analyze most of the distributions, so like in a Gaussian distribution system, you might say that some students are extremely intelligent. Some students are, maybe you can say, maybe poor, but most of the students are in the middle, you can say. I mean, near about average, above average, or slightly below average or something. Okay. So that sort of, I mean, this kind of distribution. So if you look at, I mean, I must be having a slide, if it is there, this Gaussian distribution function. But right now the slide is not there, but look at, Gaussian means essentially something, you can say, or this broader line, and in any statistical course in any school also, you must have studied about at least some distribution functions. Okay, so suppose this noise behaves is Gaussian. Now, suppose I have a positive pulse. Now, what kind of, you can say, Gaussian pulse, this white Gaussian or this particular, you can say, positive pulse can be affected, or suppose this negative pulse is affected. But negative pulse can be only, made wrong by a noise which is positive. If a noise is negative for this particular pulse, there is no issue. So that means if you have a symmetrical, I mean, Gaussian distribution Pn as 1 upon sigma n root 2 pi e to the power minus n square upon 2 sigma n square. Sigma n is standard, you can say, deviation. If you have studied, Pn is obviously, I'm representing as noise. So some sort of, you can say, Gaussian distribution. Of course, having, you can say, I mean, your central limit, or you can say that synchronized with the 0. Otherwise, it will be somewhere, I mean, some other parameter, you can say, corresponding in the particular exponential function. So I say is e to the power minus n square upon 2 sigma n square. Now, I'm just trying to explain it that this negative particular pulse will be read as positive only when my noise is at the extreme right. So I can calculate, I think you already have concepts of cumulative distribution functions, CWF. Yes, student, tell me. You know a little bit about cumulative CDF distribution functions, cumulative distribution functions. Yes or no? If you have a random signal, if you have a, I mean, you can say random signal, random variable, then you can calculate the cumulative distribution function, CDF. You have some exposure to that or not? Tell me.
Yes, sir.
You know it already. That's very good. If you know a little bit, then you can sum up the noise which is affecting it. I'm only trying to explain you that my noise, let's say from one limit to another one, let's say x to y limit, and that is also at extremely positive side, because whatever positive, small positive will not be make any, you can say, problem here. Only extreme positive will be, can convert, you can see, this negative to positive. So I can calculate my error of probability. Okay, I mean, you can say, if I define my p epsilon 0 as likelihood or probability of error, given that one is transmitted. Okay, if one is transmitted, then my noise n has to be obviously greater than np or ap. Then only my p0 will, the probability will come out. Okay, similarly I can define the probability for p, you can say epsilon 1. That means my n has to be less than minus ap. I hope every student can understand it. If my n is greater than ap, my third look at the third pulse. If my n is greater than ap, then only this noise can, this cumulative sum can be positive, and then only it can be error. If you look at positive, then my this n has to be less than minus ap. Okay, n has to be less than minus ap, and that can only have an error, can give rise to an error. So I can calculate the probability, you can say, by summing up, you can see the probability from some two ranges, alpha to beta. Then I can define, probability as 1 upon, you can say, sigma n root 2 pi alpha to beta e to the power minus n square upon 2 sigma n square dn corresponding, I can integrate across. So I calculate that p epsilon 0, that means my error when I'm transmitting 0, when I'm transmitting 0, my noise has to be positive. So it has to be, you can say, corresponding to greater than ap to infinity. I'll be integrating. And so if ap to infinity I integrate, I can calculate my what is called error function. I think error function is also very important. You know about definite integrals, students? Definite integrals. Maybe in
Yes.
the, yeah. So I mean, error function is a definite integral, and it is very well used in signal, you can say, communication. That perhaps maybe in the class I'll explain about more about this particular probability of error also. It's very, I mean, it's not difficult, you can say, to understand. And now next one is about, you can say, my I patterns. Okay, so I patterns means essentially, I mean, I patterns provide you a particular facility to see that, you might say that, sir, can we see ourselves, can where my signal, you can say, is getting bad, or my signal is not up to proper, you can say, marking. So if you test your particular channel, you can say, output anywhere, and you put it to some CRO with some sampling, you can say, you can see your particularly sampled signal, or particular the signal condition at a particular instant. So I pattern gives me a particular, you can say, it's something, the condition of the signal. Okay, because signal obviously keeps on getting attenuation or something. So I, the time base of the oscilloscope is triggered at the same rate as that of the incoming pulses. Understand? So time base we synchronize, and then what we do, we sample these particular pulses, because this is an ideal pulse. The first diagram A has ideal pulses. I'm transmitting 1 0 1 1 something. If it is ideal pulse, and if I calculate I pattern here, this is almost ideal. Okay, because there are no attenuation, there are nothing, you can say, corresponding to. Similarly for the next pulse also. Now if you can say, if you look at, I mean, a particular this kind of pulses, the I pattern will be something like it. Okay, if it's totally square, the I pattern should look like that. If it is, you can say, correspond these pulses, because I am sampling it with the same instant, or my timing base circuit is synchronized with the incoming timing information, incoming time pulse information. So this is, both of them are ideal, you can call. Now look at the real signal. The real signal sample, if you look at this particular in E, if you look at, this is crisscrossing. Okay, look here, I mean, some signal is very heavily attenuated, some signal is, you can say, positive side, negative side, and obviously this is not a very healthy picture, you can say. Understand? because why this kind of happening is because it's a synchronized with that same time signal. Now you might say that what does it mean? I mean, I pattern means, look here, this is more clearer perhaps, at least diagram. Now if you look at this I pattern here, what does it represent? The slope of the pulse here, slope shows sensitivity to sampling is time. Okay, so the slope will give me information about sensitivity of the sampling time. 2 hours of sampling, you can see time. Optimum sampling means I'll sample my you can say signal here at this particular center. If you don't sample it, obviously, I mean, there may be some problem, you can say. A problem in a sense, because suppose you have got a 5 volt here, my peak should be here somehow. I'm presuming that my peak of the, you can say, signal is coming at this instant. And so that is a maximum eye opening, you can call it. Okay. So I sample it there. Now this represents my noise margins. This particular my noise margin at the best sampling point. What does it mean by noise margin? Noise margins means how much noise can be accommodated or tolerated. Okay, this is my level crossing. Okay, this particular level represents level crossing, and this represents the distortion at best sampling point. How much distortions are there? Okay, and level crossing ambiguity shows timing jitter. Look here, this kind of crisscross, that will represent my timing jitter. That means you can say lack of, rather, I mean, synchronization, or you can say maybe overstepping or understanding. There may be some delays, or there may be some, you can say, slow down also. I mean, overstepping, or you can say lagging behind. So this kind of particular kind of configuration will give me some idea about timing jitter, and that's the error for sampling region. I hope each one of you understand that. I mean, the receiver has to make a decision at what instant. You might say that we can sample it here also, sir. We can sample it here also. But the best sampling, you can say, result will be obviously when it is at a peak value. Okay. So this is an eye diagram of a transmitted signal. And why this eye diagram is important? Because this gives me information about the signal quality. So as I said earlier on, we should have repeater at 20 kilometer, we should have repeater at 40 kilometer. We can make out. Okay, it is either it has to be, you can say, the signal. If you put on your scope, I mean your you can say person maintaining the transmission line, he can easily go and he can put on the this particular connections, and then he can see on the CRO that the signal, what kind of eye pattern is getting generated at this particular instant across a particular pair. And so make a decision about that, whether, I mean, this particular in your link budget analysis, at what particular point the signal has to be replenished or has to be re-energized. So those calculations are based upon those kind of, you can say, measurement. Understand? I think this is again sampling and decision instance is the same thing, you can say, eye patterns or polar signal systems using a raised cosine pulse. Okay, this kind of pulse are coming for a raised cosine pulse with roll-off factor of 0.5. That's over 2 simple periods, 2 TB, with a time shift and without time shift. Both of them are there. Now, this is my 4-array PAM signal, you can say, which we will start now. I think in our next lecture, perhaps we may start with this particular error calculations, or you can say basic digital modulation schemes also. What is PAM signal? Pulse amplitude modulated signal. Yes. You have already, I think, done this particular during your PCM course. What is a PAM signal? Yes, student, someone should reply.
Sir, the amplitude of the pulse signal is varied according to the message signal incoming.
Yeah, and in fact, you can say it's essentially sampled signal, sir, because the sampled amplitude, you can say, at a particular is as per your incoming signal. Okay, and this is analog signal or digital signal, PAM signal? This is analog signal or a digital signal? Pulse amplitude modulated signal, sampled signal.
Digital.
Yeah, No, it's not digital, because digital will have only two levels, है ना, 0 1. But your PAM signal will have all, you can say. I mean, every instant you will generate some voltage. So it cannot be digital. Okay, it's essentially continuous signal. I mean, it is rather, you can call it a discrete signal. It's not digital. Try to distinguish between two, signals: discrete signal and digital signal. A discrete signal means it can take many amplitude. You can say a digital signal, on the same, you can work on some binary levels, some 0 level, some 1 level, you can say. Okay, you got it? I mean, it clearly. I mean, all students,
Yes, sir.
the difference between analog, discrete, and digital. So discrete signal can take many amplitude values, like your sampled signal can take many values depending upon your message signal, but your digital signal will take only, you can say, binary. I mean, it has to be 0 or 1. So that's what you do in PCM. In PCM, what you do is you sample it, then what you get is pulse amplitude modulated, and then you quantize it. Once you quantize it, you encode it, and after encoding, you get your, you can say, last signal. And in encoding, what you do is you essentially assign certain bits, you can say, depending upon the amplitude, 3 or 5. I think the PCM code that you must have generated, like how the 8 bits are generated. I think, as I said in the beginning, like those lectures, you should again try to revisit. At least, I mean, you might say that if I ask you, what is the data rate, okay, in let's say PCM, PCM में कितनी data rate generate होती है? तुम्हें पता होना चाहिए सब. I mean, most of students should know it. कि सर उसका रेट ऑफ जो ट्रांसमिशन है PCM सिग्नल का, वो क्या कितना होता है? यस, हु विल रिप्लाई? जो रेट है, किस रेट से आपकी इंफॉर्मेशन जा रही है, वॉइस जा रही है आपकी? कुछ है आइडिया? आपका जो वॉइस सिग्नल है, इफ यू लुक एट ए वॉइस सिग्नल, यू आर सैम्पलिंग इट एट 8 kilohertz. Okay, and then each sample you are assigning 8 bits, so this becomes 64 kilobits. Okay, so it's a constant speed, because it's a circuit switch, you can say. The speed will be constant. Normally in a packet switching or other, you can vary it, but in case of all circuit switch, the speed. But anyway, you'll perhaps read more about these things, and we'll discuss in the class also, many of these things. I think this is, you can say, called simply ASK signal. The most elementary form of, you can say, digital modulation is amplitude shift keying, ASK. Of course, in the lab, I think you probably not having experiment also. ASK essentially means, if you look in this particular figure, in the A, you have your carrier signal. Okay, so in ASK, what is happening is, if suppose this is my baseband signal, okay, on off signaling, I am using 1 0 1 1 0 0 0 1. What happens if I transmit, you can say, 1, then I'll transmit this particular pulse carrier, and for 0 I don't transmit any signal. Again, if it's a 1, I transmit, you can say, my corresponding to this amplitude of this carrier. If it's again 1, I transmit, but if again there are zeros, I don't transmit. So, I mean, look at, the most, elementary form, in a sense, because you might say that, sir, digital came, I mean, in 1 day or 1 year or something. I think a lot of scientists and engineers were struggling with it. How do we make, this particular binary form, we can transmit it to some channel, so this carrier can be supported on the channel easily. Understand? That's what I explained you in the very first meaning. Like, why do we have digital modulation? Because the channel can only support low frequency signals. The channel cannot support, high frequency, because of limited bandwidth. I mean, twisted pair or coaxial cables, they have their inherent. In fact, there are, you should know also a little bit, I mean, those who are interested about ADSL, asynchronous digital subscriber lines. Okay, I mean, symmetric or asymmetric. Symmetric and asymmetric digital subscriber lines. I think those were the kind of technology which enabled some high-speed transmission across these cables also. Anyway, I think this is what I wanted to discuss today. And let's hope, I think next time we meet offline, maybe in some lecture room. Okay, any question, student, now you want to ask? Please feel free to ask. Hmm? No question? That means you have understood everything, huh? Good. That's good if you have, picking up everything. Okay, so we meet on the next lecture. Of course, the information will be communicated to you by the department also, or maybe if I got some information, I'll also communicate that. Okay.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
So I have a doubt.
Yeah. Yes. Good.
During demodulation of amplitude shift keying modulated signal,
Uh,
we require a square loop detector.
during ASK.
Yes, sir. So during
Okay.
demodulation of ASK, so what is the need of that square loop detector?
A square loop detector, maybe you are trying to find, some signal, you can say some carrier signal information. Okay. Most of these loop detectors you will have is to get, you can say, or some sort of synchronous behavior. Okay. Now
Yes.
you might say that I'm reading on, a particular amplitude level. Suppose if you come to ASK, how do I read, how do I detect, you can say, 1 has come or 0 has come? Obviously you have to read some amplitude level or some signal level. Some you'll how you'll be identifying a particular signal with 0 1. So suppose this carrier has come. So if you have a square loop, maybe some frequency signal, you will pick up that this is corresponding to signal. So that any other frequency component I'm getting, that means that's a fictitious, or you can say wrong. Understand? The square loop detectors normally are mostly like in BPSK also. We have, some, you can say, carrier recovery if you have studied in the lab also. But mostly these are done for the synchronous, you can say, demodulation exercise.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Any other question? Okay, because when phase or other, so many things, I think you in detection, we will see that. The digital detection itself is a big area. In fact, we will talk more about it maybe in the next lectures. So no question? Okay, so we meet next lecture. Fine.